I always want to live out of the things that happen to me and the things I've experienced. I always want there to be some sort of peaceful, like Nirvana-esque path forward. I was inspired by the veterans that I've worked with for the last 20 years. When they tell me I often find starting from a sense of obligation is okay. When they would say, no, so-and-so died, I have a responsibility to laugh and live for two now, man. Because if I don't, it's dismissing. And I have a responsibility to over-laugh, over-adventure, over-treat people well because of what happened to me when I was a kid. I don't know that that's healthy long-term, but I think sometimes obligation, I have a responsibility to go find joy because of what happened to me. As good jet fuel to get me personally off the mat.
Well, let's just connect that as where we just were. As one side, I have to live for two. Mm-hmm. On the other side, I work with veterans who also will say to me, you don't understand. Mm-hmm. This pain that I carry forever is a badge of honor. Mm-hmm. And this is my connection to them is the pain. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, I see that and I understand that. And it's been a while that you've been in this pain. What would happen if you released that pain? Mm-hmm. And I would lose a connection. And I would go, I don't think so. When you release that pain, you would stay connected, but you would be connected only in love. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that pain that you think is a badge of honor, love is a stronger badge. Mm-hmm. And you can wear their love. So it is between back to the disloyalty and I'm not going to live to I'm living for both. I mean, find a place within there, but not be an extreme of either.
Well, that reminds me of the old, it's a cliche now, but it's true. You get to choose your hard. Do you want to choose hard and carry pain around forever? Or do you want to choose hard and figure out ways to laugh? And I always tell folks, when you're faced with that, find the hard or choose the hard that on the other side of it gives you the best opportunity for joy, right?
And one of the things that you mentioned is that little person in us that we're always working on healing and going back to. One of the keys for me that was different is because that is that little wounded self. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I see so many times is people go, I'm so screwed up. My abandonment comes up every time I'm in a new relationship. My this comes up, and all that. My fears, I was abused. I think I don't trust, all that. People are going to die on me, whatever that flavor is that comes up. Why am I so screwed up? I always think about, what if we didn't see it as you're so screwed up? But what if it was that little child within you knocking? Don't forget about me. I still need some healing. I still need some healing. So on one hand, I think we have to recognize that, inner child. There was a John Bradshaw comic strip I'll never forget that it said, there's this guy, John Bradshaw, that says we all have these, it's two bears talking in the woods. The two bears are talking, there's this guy, John Bradshaw here. He talks about our inner child and we got to nourish that inner child. And the other bear says, it's very interesting, but let's eat him. It's sort of like that. But here's the other piece I think people don't realize. You talk about that inner child in you, or I talk about that inner child in me. It's not just about trying to heal those wounds, and they get revealed in our grief.
Sure.
Can we bring them with us? Like, it's cool for me, but I got to tell you, the little David in me is sitting here with you today.
Yes.
I want him to come to these good moments. I don't want him to be, isn't a shooting and there was abuse. I want him, I hope that John and little Dave, both little John and little, they're getting to be in this moment with each other and enjoying this moment with us. And that we bring them forward. And here's the thing. I don't want, how many people leave that child in the abuse, in the death?
Yeah.
Bring them with you.
So that's probably, in the 1,000 things I've learned from you, that's probably one of the top 3 things that has been what I would tell you is a direct gift and something I find myself saying often now. And when somebody, I just recently was sitting somebody, just the worst of the worst, and I made them look me in the eye, and I put my hand on the back of their neck just to be still. And I said, they're not hurting anymore. They're not hurting right now. How often do we get locked into that child who got hit too hard, that child who got sexually abused, that there was a car wreck and we imagined that recognition, that flash of recognition and the hit and what was pain. We trap either ourselves, we trap our loved ones, we trap the nameless people we see on the news. We trap them in that moment. And there's something so profound about saying, hey, they're not hurting right now.
Yeah, they're not in that moment anymore. I understand your loved one was murdered, how it's as horrific as it gets, and they're not being murdered today. And so many times...
That's such an exhale.
And I'll tell you, but the thing is, so many times, especially with the therapists I train, we talk about and coaches, everyone's like, let's bring our clients out of the traumatic moment into the now. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but we can't leave our loved ones in the trauma.
Right.
We got to bring them into the now. They're no longer in the car wreck. Our inner child's no longer getting abused.
Yes.
We got to move everyone into the now. When we keep anyone in the trauma, and all grief does not have trauma, but all trauma has grief.
There you go. Yeah. And yeah, it's like feelings. It's become this thing that it's not, right? On both sides of this equation. And I think trauma is that same thing. Trauma is very, very real. And it's a part of you. And every uncomfortable feeling is not trauma.
Right.
And every dumb thing your parents said is not trauma. It's a weird mix. I'm trying to tell people to own and recognize their trauma. And also, that's not trauma too, right? It's a both and.
And it is that. It's like on one hand, no one else gets to define.
That's it.
Your trauma.
That's right.
Two people can go through the same thing and one is traumatized, the other's not. And there's some underlying wound if every day in life you are re-traumatized by something that's happened.
Correct.
Why are you wearing black? Do you not know how traumatizing that is? I mean, and one of the things in our world now is we so want to outsource our healing. We want to go, everyone's got to really give me trauma warnings. We got to understand.
It's y'all's job.
It's y'all's job
yeah.
to heal me inside. And it's interesting when people say to me, where do we begin? I don't know where to begin. I'll go, what triggers you? What activates you? That's a map to your grief and trauma.
Yeah.
And it's a map to your healing.
Yep.
Don't dismiss that. That's the map we're looking for you to get through this.
I've often, not often, always, healing's on the other side of that. It's not around it, right?
Right.
And often I'll tell people, I know it looks daunting. I'll go with you. I'll walk with you.
Right.
Or at least walk until you can be with the next person and with the next person. Right. But if you want peace, you got to go to the other side of that.
Right.
Okay, so I want to shift gears. I just want to stay here for a while, but I want to talk to some practical things.
Yes.
Okay. I just need to double click on something before we do that. I want to go back to just what you just said, because I can't let that slide with our listeners. Me telling somebody that your healing starts here, and it's you getting somebody, it's you choosing to walk towards this thing. That is the empowerment. That's somebody looking, I believe in you, not, and I've been guilty of this, especially at the university level, spending all of my time trying to clear the deck for everybody so that they can go through their world with no discomfort. That is disempowering. That is me looking at you saying, I don't believe in you. Let me go clear it for you. Instead of saying, No, I believe in you. Let's wrap skills and support so that we can go together. We can go to the other side of that. That's empowerment.
It's the good news and the bad news.
That's right.
And, the bad news is it's actually in you. Mm-hmm. The good news is that's where you can get to it. Like,
right.
Oh my gosh, I don't need to talk to the abuser.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't need to get my healing from them. I don't need to get it from my ex. I don't need my loved one who died. It's in me. Oh, well, I have access to me. Like, how lucky am I? It turns out the issue is where I can get it.
Yeah.
And we talked about disloyalty. I want to just unpack healing for a moment, because there's some people who go, I want healing. And I'm like it's a bad word.
Yeah.
People think there's something about healing means, I'm going to forget them. I'm going to dismiss the trauma that happened. Mm-hmm. I'm going to minimize it. To me, healing means the events or the event no longer controls me. I don't make decisions anymore from my abandonment. Mm-hmm. I don't have relationships from my prior losses. I can't connect with you because we could die. We could all lose. Mm-hmm. I mean, I am now in reality and in freedom to feel, do whatever I want and write a different future without using the pen of all those losses or traumas.
My goodness. So how do we, and I'm laughing because it just sounds like such a cruel question. How do we show up with the right amount of compassion and the right amount of, I don't even have a word for it, for folks who I would call pain collectors or injustice collectors, or I just have to, like, my identity is how much I hurt.
Right.
And they're just, we all have a family member. Okay. We all have people in our local church, but that I end up feeling like I don't want to even go. I'm going to take a different path out of my church building because I don't want to walk past. Right. How do we provide grace and empathy and compassion and also?
So there was a therapist that I met years ago who said to me, every client I meet leaves a little pain in my office. Mm-hmm. And I went, you're not going to make it. Oh, no, you can't be a pain collector. Oh, no. This is, I would look at some other gigs. This is not for you if you're going to collect pain. So here's the thing. Let's talk about which grief is the worst. People always want to know, which is the worst grief? Is it the sexual abuse that ruins, it feels like your sex life for the rest of your life? Is it the trauma of your childhood? Is it a divorce where they didn't die, they're like rejecting you every day on this planet? Is it the betrayal that you can no longer trust? Is it the person dying? Is it a murder? Is it a child's death? I always say, the worst loss is yours. It's yours. Mm. I can never know your losses, your griefs. I can't know it. I can only know my own. Now, I work with people and work very hard to find security in my grief. Mm. So many times, I need you to honor my grief and my pain and my loss. Mm. I always say, what if you're the one that needs to get it? What if, I can't make John understand what I've been through? I mean, look, I could explain it. You could, what if I'm the one that needs to get how brutal this was, and I need to sit with it and heal it? What if I forget trying to get John and Sue and Martha to get it? What if I get it? So there's that piece. The other piece is whenever and this is like a really important piece for therapists and coaches and all that, whenever you have that person, like in the grief group, who goes, really? Mm-hmm. Your spouse died a year after you were married? Oh, I lost my spouse at 40 years. That's real grief. Right. So whenever anyone goes, how dare them? Mm-hmm. How dare they're really saying, you know, you have gotten too much grief attention and I haven't gotten enough. So the advanced work is to go, the person who's comparing is really telling us they haven't gotten enough support.
Yeah.
Now, we're coming back to feelings.
Yeah.
In my online group, I have a grief group for the death of a person, Tender Hearts. In that group, sometimes we have what's called a check-in. And I'll go, what are you feeling? And there's people who will be telling their stories, and I'll go, have you had a chance to tell this story? And some people are like, no one lets me tell this story. I'll go, but we want to hear it. Please continue. And there's other people who go, yes, I've told this story 1,000 times and it's never enough. It's because the feelings didn't get witnessed, not the story.
Yeah.
There's a feeling that didn't get witnessed. So there is this one place, getting back to your question of, I need to see your pain. Your grief, your pain, it needs to be witnessed. On the other hand, I also see you more than your pain. I know you feel victimized, and there is more to your story than that. I want to remind you of your greatness and see your pain.
Yeah.
And so that's the challenge when we see people who are like, it is nothing. And I'll tell you, one of the things I start with in this workbook is having people tell their stories.
Yep. Yeah.
And to see and bring awareness, because I have them tell it different ways. How do you tell your story? Do you tell it? Because listen, in my life, I have told my story when I was young. I was like, yeah, there was a shooting. My mom died. It was no big deal. Like, I wanted to be like everyone else. I minimized my story. Then there was a time where like, I'm screwed up. This is the story of someone who's screwed up. I'm like a victim. Then I was like, I'm a victor. I'm a victor of my story.
Yeah.
You know, there's a part of me that like when my son died, my younger son, are you kidding? Why? Why me?
Yeah.
Like really have not, like I not had enough grief? Why me? And then there was another story I found of like, yeah, that's painful. And why not you? Did you think the grief expert gets to only have grief in it? Did you think, you know? Why not you? So how we tell our stories is really a key.